Ferrari started the 2024 racing season with one driver getting third place and the other getting fourth place, but it looks like these two drivers will keep fighting with each other all season long. Even though Ferrari became the second best team so far in 2024, with Sainz having a really good race and staying just 2 seconds behind Perez, we can guess that the Spanish driver has set his goals very high. The team boss of the red Ferrari team will have a really tough job ahead of him. Will Sainz finally show how good he really is? And if he does, will that hurt Leclerc's chances with Ferrari in the future? The Bahrain race went pretty well for both Ferrari drivers, even though Leclerc kept complaining about his front wheels locking up. This happened mostly at turn 1 and turn 10, and because of this problem, he lost his spot to Russell. Sainz mainly beat him because of this issue too. But as the race went on, it became clear that Leclerc was actually faster than Russell. However, he couldn't catch up to Sainz. Sainz wasn't scared to pass his teammate twice, even though Leclerc really fought hard both times in the early part of the race when Russell passed Leclerc on lap 3. There were 4 drivers all within 1 second of each other. This is when Sainz made it clear that he wouldn't follow any team orders from his crew, saying he was faster than everyone ahead of him. The amazing thing was that he was last in the group that Russell, Leclerc and Perez were leading. He only got beaten by the Red Bull driver. So passing your teammate and the faster Mercedes driver definitely sends a very strong message about your future. After all, there's one open spot in the Mercedes team for the 2025 season. If team boss Wolff decides it's still too early for young driver Antonelli, and if Alonso jumps to Mercedes, Sainz might have a real chance to prove to Ferrari that the problem wasn't with the drivers. Still, it's just one race, and we shouldn't make big conclusions too early. However, there are some things we can be sure about for 2024, and that's the fact that Sainz will have the attitude of every man for himself. Obviously, there will be lots of talk about why the team wasn't there to celebrate finishing the first race with a third-place trophy from the faster of both drivers. This makes people think even more that Ferrari would rather support Leclerc than they supported Sainz in 2024. This gives the smooth operator even more reason to prove himself to a bigger extent. A very important thing to mention is that Leclerc was also Ferrari's favorite driver since he was the first driver called into the pit stops. He was supposed to get ahead of his teammate by stopping earlier, but even this didn't play a huge role in how the race ended up. If we look at the lap time comparisons between the teammates, Sainz had the biggest difference compared to Leclerc, about 0.4 of a second faster. Although it's worth saying that the brake problem the Monaco driver had stopped him from pushing to his full speed. And fourth place was probably the best he could have done anyway with this type of car. Yes, it's very good for the Monaco driver to have passed Russell and finished right behind his teammate, but Russell's engine problems and the team turning down his power unit so he could make it to the end of the race played a huge role in how the drivers were lined up at the end of lap 57. Obviously, the order between Ferrari's drivers was not what Ferrari wanted to see, and it definitely hurt Leclerc's ability to be the team leader. However, it was always clear that Sainz is not the type of driver to give up so easily. Now that he has everything to fight for, we might see a version of him we haven't seen before. But we could have predicted that Sainz wouldn't play the team game. While we saw this fighting on just a few times in 2023, like at Monza for example, we can safely assume that the Spanish driver will be like this for the whole season. After all, he doesn't have a contract for the 2025 season, and the last thing he would want to do is play the team game. It's every man for himself, and Sainz made sure to make a statement about how he feels about being replaced by Hamilton while he believed he had a future with Ferrari. Yes, we could argue that Leclerc had problems with his car, but considering the fact that most people believed the car would work better for him than for Sainz, and that the Spanish driver started 2 positions behind his teammate at 4th place, the result definitely goes in Sainz's favor much more than he could have originally expected. He didn't have the speed to challenge Perez for 2nd place, but he wasn't that far off the pace. If he manages to do this for the rest of the season just like Hamilton did last year, then it would be fair to assume that he would be looking at a much more competitive team than Sauber and then Audi. The Bahrain race has shown one clear thing: Ferrari will have headaches when it comes to choosing which driver to help when tough situations come up. This problem would also happen to Mercedes, but considering the fact that Hamilton has a contract for 2025 with the team that Sainz was trying to extend his Formula One career with, you'd likely assume that the battles between Leclerc and Sainz would be much fiercer than those between Russell and Hamilton. Even in the practice sessions before the season, Sainz's lap times have shown that he's not here to play games. While many people saw him as the backup driver in the team, that is about to change when his career is on the line. Speaking to reporters after the race, Sainz made sure that his outstanding performance in Bahrain wouldn't be a one-time thing. He plans to continue what he started in the desert, adding, "I felt really good out there today. The start wasn't great, but from then on I managed my tires and then I could do my race. I passed 2 or 3 cars on the way to the podium, and keeping up with the Red Bull was a pleasant surprise. It's still not enough or where we want to be, good step forward and a solid start to the season. Sainz did this in the best way possible when reporters kept asking him about his potential relationship with Leclerc on the track and his feelings about how it all ended for him once the Hamilton contract became public. The smooth operator made sure not to say anything controversial and to let everything play out on the racetrack, which is what he did after passing his teammate Russell in the race. There are two very important statements that Sainz made in Bahrain. The first one being about him being the faster and better performing driver in Bahrain's race, which was not expected after he started in 4th place. The second one being that he might be faster than Russell in a different but similarly competitive car. This could make the Mercedes team think a lot about whether or not he's worth bringing on board if this is to happen. There is a huge obstacle ahead of the Spanish driver besides the future threats of Max Verstappen and young Kimi Antonelli, and that is his fellow countryman Fernando Alonso. Aston Martin didn't have the best start of the season, finishing 9th and 10th and being arguably the worst team out of the top 5. If they continue to go at this pace, then it's very likely that unhappiness in Alonso will show up and he won't think twice about a move to Mercedes. This could even make Sainz take more aggressive actions, which were quite statement-making ones, when it came to completing overtakes, being competitive, and staying behind the Red Bull car for quite some time. Eventually, the hard compound tire did not work in his favor and he couldn't have used a different tactic to push harder to pass Perez. But after starting from 4th place and beating two very important drivers that he'd want to beat for the rest of the season, it's not that bad of a start to a season, after all. Leclerc and Sainz have always been thought to be two very close friends besides being teammates. But that was until Ferrari's team boss pulled the plug on the Spanish driver and made sure to let him know that when a bigger opportunity like Hamilton comes around, you can't say no to an offer like that. But seeing where Mercedes currently is, even though Hamilton's race was quite hurt by his battery problems, Ferrari have received the first slap in the face from Sainz. Sainz would have had all the motivation in the world to drive the wheels off the Ferrari car and to have the best possible finishing position in 2024, which would be 2nd place right now. That seems kind of impossible due to both Red Bull cars being so dominant. But the difference between Perez and Sainz was constantly around 3 seconds and sometimes it dropped to less than 2, meaning that the Ferrari driver made a couple of tries before he understood he would be wasting his tires for no reason. But there is very likely a lot of fireworks coming at Ferrari in the near future, especially when the car starts to get its upgrades. While many of the fans were quite disappointed that the race ended the way it did, we must remind you that the first version of the car is just the starting version. Once information is gathered from the races, small changes and huge upgrades would definitely push the competitors further up the grid. Yes, this also applies to Red Bull, who are not done chasing their controversial zero sidepod design, but with Ferrari being the number 2 team so far, it seems like a lot of their trust would be placed in Sainz. That is, unless Ferrari's team boss tries to do something to save the team's dignity and help Leclerc in different ways, some of which could trigger anger from Sainz to a different extent. With this in mind, do you think that Sainz would make Ferrari regret their decision to replace him with Hamilton? And more importantly, which team do you think would be willing to sign a longer contract for him?